All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar, Your Service Apps in Lightning Experience. I'm glad you're all joining us this afternoon. I am Howard Yermish. I'm our Director of Customer Success here at Internet Creations, and I'm joined by our Product Manager, Joe Reale. Joe, say hello.
Hey guys, how's it going today?
This webinar, we actually have to do our forward-looking statement slide. You are going to see some features and functionality in our products that are not generally available, some of which will be available shortly and some of which aren't yet available. You're going to get a couple of secret early looks at stuff. So just so you know that that is happening, please do not make any purchase decisions based on what we show here, although purchase everything because you love us. And finally, don't ask us for a very specific release timetable unless we give you one. And actually, we are going to be giving you some specifics about the releases and push upgrades. So we will move right along here. So Joe, do you want to go over our agenda this afternoon?
Sure, thanks, Howard. So we have four main items for our agenda today. The first item is that we'll review all the major changes we've made to our apps in terms of supporting them for the Lightning experience. We'll then move into the meat of the presentation, which is our demonstration of how these apps work in Lightning today. We'll then move on to talk about some best practices for each of the apps in Lightning. And then we'll wrap things up with our projected release/push upgrade schedule. So we'll give you a little bit of information on when we intend to release these to the public and when we intend to just automatically push it out.
Great. So the first application we're going to talk about is case flags for Lightning. The big change with case flags is actually in the setup experience, as well as some Lightning designed the loading spinners when you set flags and clear flags. This is going to be the kind of thing where if you're setting up case flags for the first time, the setup experience should be a lot easier to do. The Lightning design, as well as some other changes that we've made to just making things a little bit easier to manage. If you have an existing setup of case flags, you don't have to change anything, but when you go to make some changes, you'll notice this new experience. So there's nothing that you have to worry about from a changes in setup, but it's going to be a lot easier for you to work with. The second app is Case Merge Premium. Case Merge Premium has some pretty significant interface updates. This first one that I want to talk about is the new Lightning component. And this allows us to bring the duplicate detector as well as the feature for merging with recent case into its own little panel that you can put on any Lightning page layout. Also, the big thing is the merge process itself is now using the Lightning design system. So that's something where the Lightning component is only for people in Lightning, but the merge process is actually for everyone. So whether you're in Classic or you're in Lightning, you now have that Lightning design system for the merge process. And it's a much smoother process. There's a lot more features that we bring to that. It's a little bit easier to work with that you'll see. In addition, we also have done the setup experience. Again, you don't have to make any changes to your existing setup. There's nothing that you have to do with that. But when you dive in, you'll get a better interface, a little bit easier to set up from the beginning as well. The third app I want to talk about is Case Split. The big feature here, Joe, I would say, is the side-by-side split mode. This is something that traditionally you had a lot of clicking to do to kind of get things in the right place. Now with this side-by-side mode, you have a lot more functionality as well as some drag and drop support, being able to move whether it's the case comments, the related emails and attachments, those things from one case to another. We still retain all of the ability in terms of splitting to a new case or splitting to an existing case, but there's some other features that make it nicer. You can kind of set up both cases when you do the split for you can assign to the new user, change the subjects, get the description right, get it all cleaned up before it goes to the next user. Also, the setup experience is completely redesigned for Case Split. Finally, Signature Slayer. We now have the hit list manager in Lightning. This is something where it's a little cleaner experience in terms of working with those images. It just fits better in the whole experience as well as the setup experience in Lightning is also delivered and ready to go. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to turn it over to Joe to kind of give us a walkthrough, but I just want to do a quick check. There's no open questions at this point, so we're going to dive right into the walkthrough of our applications using Lightning. So Joe, take it away.
All right, thank you, Howard. So I'm going to go ahead and switch to our customer success developer org, which we have some sample data to work with. So we're going to kind of take you through the life cycle of a case using each of the applications we just spoke about. So I noticed that I actually have two cases from you, Howard, both with the same subject line. So I'm going to go ahead and view the first case that you opened.
And this was a case that I opened through, imagine a customer community, a web portal, or something like that. So it came through that process.
Correct. So this case, the first thing I noticed on this case is that there is a duplicate being detected here. So, and I'm going to imagine that it's that case that was showing up in the same list view, correct. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the duplicate case indicator here. And this is going to load up the case merge premium page that we displayed before. So from here, it already shows me the duplicate that I want to go ahead and merge. So if I wanted to merge this one, I would just go ahead and click the select box here.
But I think one of the things that's really nice about this is the searching. You have a few extra tools like searching by text or looking at recent cases. That's right here in this process.
Yep. So by default, it's going to load all the criteria that you set up in the case merge premium settings. But if you want, you can also search by, for example, like an existing case number if you know the case you want to merge. We also brought the merge with recent case visual force page onto this page as well. So you can use either of those options to go ahead and merge the cases together.
Great. So let's do a little merge-a-rooney.
Yep. So I've already selected the cases I want to merge together. I'm going to go ahead and proceed by clicking the merge button here. So by default, it's going to select the oldest case first, which was the case that Howard had opened through our web portal. So by default, we're going to merge all the child objects as well on the child cases that were involved in this merge. So any attachments, files, case comments, email messages, those types of things from case 1178 are going to be merged up into 1177.
So what's the clean merge?
Sure. So the clean merge option is if you don't want to merge any of the child objects from the child cases onto the parent. So a great use case for this would be, let's say a duplicate case was created from an out of the office email message.
Got it.
That's something that you probably wouldn't necessarily need to capture on the master case, but you still want to merge the cases together because it does exist as a duplicate and just to establish the parent-child relationship.
Fabulous. Thank you for explaining that. So let's merge through.
Yep. Let me go ahead and merge the cases together, confirm that. All right. And then I'm just going to go back to my parent case that I was working. I'm just going to give this one extra refresh. Okay. So now this is the parent case I chose in when merging these cases together. You can see now that there are no duplicates being detected here.
It's got them all resolved. All right, so now you're going to send me a response, right? You're going to start addressing this case.
Let's read what the issue was that you presented to us. So let's see. So hello, I tried to access the X25 widget today, but I encountered an error message, X25 widget failed to load. And let's go ahead and see what I merged in. So the case that I merged in actually had another message from Howard attaching a screenshot, likely because he wasn't able to attach a screenshot when opening the case through the web portal. So he says, hi, support for your reference. I also wanted to include a screenshot of the error message. Please see attached. And it's attached in the files related list over here.
Great. So let's send me a public comment.
Sure. You go back down. So because this is an issue that I've actually seen before, I'm going to go ahead and respond to Howard using a canned comment. This is actually part of one of our other applications called Email to Case Premium. So canned comments, just to quickly summarize, is just a form of pre-written text that a support rep may use over and over again to responding to common issues. So Howard reported an issue saying that his X25 widget was failing to load. So I'm going to go ahead and use the canned comment that is regarding the X25 widget failing to load. So we'll go ahead and insert that. So this email message is going to go to Howard, and it has some contents here. It gives Howard some instructions on how to go ahead and restart the widget. And
I think one of the things that's nice about this, I'm noticing in your attachments related list here, you've got troubleshooting the startup of a neat widget, which is probably a PDF file, correct, Joe?
That's correct, and that's something that I put as part of the canned comment. So other than just the text that I've inserted here, with canned comments, you can also insert or include attachments or files that can be inserted on the new comment page as well.
Great, so let's send out that comment to me so I can reply to it. Great. So at this point, that comment's been sent, and I'm going to get this response in my email and probably reply to it. But one of the things that's, we sort of noticed is that attachments related list. I included one screenshot, and I know, and it's already showing like a whole bunch of images.
Yep, exactly. So it looks like some of these images may have been some logos from your signature, Howard. So while those may be important to your signature, for the purpose of managing the case, those images are not relevant to the problem presented on the case. So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with reviewing those images and seeing which ones can be removed. Just to also make a quick note, when I responded to Howard there, it went ahead and cleared the case flag. And I have within this console, I have a section here to view any of the history tracking records associated with case flags.
Great.
So I'm going to go ahead and click on the Manage Attached Images button. This is the button that comes with Signature Slayer. Okay, and as we mentioned before, it looked like some of the attachments were part of your email signature.
Correct.
So
let's slay this.
It looks like all of these are actually part of the email signature, and none are relevant to resolving the case, at least from the perspective of the support agent. So I'm going to go ahead and click on all of these images, select all of them, and remove selected and add to hit list.
And one thing to note, it's detecting the smaller images so that anything else that's going to come in there, so any of the larger images like the screenshots, aren't going to be picked up through this hit list manager.
Yep.
But future versions of those signature images are going to get automatically slayed.
Yep. I'm going to go ahead and return to the case now. And let me just give this one extra refresh. I think I may have clicked that a little too fast. Let me go ahead and just do that one more time.
Oh, I already sent you a response.
Oh, that might be why. Let me go ahead and remove these. There we go. So yes, it looks like Howard had responded to me, letting me know that the information I sent him had helped resolve his issue. However, he's now facing a new issue with logging in. And let's see what the issue is. So I'm going to go to the file that he sent. And it looks like the error he's encountering is too many login attempts, and that his account has been locked.
That's what happens. I don't remember any password. I should really use a password manager.
All right. So then, because Howard presented a new issue on the case we had been working, I'm going to actually go ahead and send him another comment, letting him know we're going to split this issue off using case split. So from the new comment page, again, I'm going to pull in another canned comment, letting him know that we're only going to address one issue per case, and that we're going to split his issue off into a new case. So Howard's going to go ahead and receive this message. I'm actually going to go ahead and close this case, update the status, and I'll send that away. Okay. And then from the case, I'm going to go ahead and use the split button to split this off into a brand new case. So let's split this here. So as Howard mentioned before, we have a new side-by-side mode with case split, so you can compare the contents of the original case to what's on the new case. So we know that when we're splitting this case, the subject's going to be different because Howard's reporting a new issue now. So it's no longer that the widget failed to load, it's that there's getting too many attempts in login. And I've already practiced this a little earlier today, so I have this content already pre-written out and saved in Chrome.
And what if you wanted to pull out some content for that description from, say, one of the case comments? How would you go about doing that?
Sure. So with case comments, as we saw before, you can drag and drop from the original case to the new case. You could also copy the content out just by highlighting the text. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and copy his last sentence regarding having trouble logging in. And when I highlight this text, it's actually going to automatically copy that text to the clipboard. So now when I go here, and I backspace that, I'm going to go ahead and just Control V, get that in there. So now I have a proper subject and description for this case. I'm going to leave Howard as the contact on this case, so all this information up top is correct. I'm going to drag his latest comment onto the new case. And then I'm going to scroll down a little bit. As you can see, the comment that was matching the email message also got, the email message that was matching the comment also got copied over by default. And on this case, I'm also going to copy over the login error screenshot that Howard sent over. So I'm going to go ahead and split this off. And perfect. So now I have a new case that I can work that's separate from the original case that Howard opened. So then on this case, the login issue is another common issue that we have. So I'm going to go ahead and respond to Howard using, yet again, another canned comment. So I'm going to use the account locked canned comment. So now when I constructed this canned comment, I constructed it in the sense of that I'd be responding to a customer who opened a brand new case. So because I've been in communication with Howard, I'm going to actually remove the content that says thanks for reaching out to our team, because Howard's already been in contact with us. We don't really necessarily need to include this.
I think what's really nice is you can give people a starting point and then let them customize it, as opposed to doing something like an email template where there's no options to customize. So this really lets your support agents personalize their communications for the cases that they're working on, but still have a consistency.
Exactly. All right, so the content of this message, I'm going to let Howard know that we always place a temporary lock on our customers' accounts if they try to log in unsuccessfully for 10 times. I'm going to also let him know that I've unlocked his account and that he should have gotten an email asking him to reset his username and password. So before I send this away, I'm just going to update the status to with customer, and I'm going to go ahead and send this away to Howard. So the first thing we did was we reviewed the cases that came in. We noticed that there were duplicate cases, and we merged them together using Case Merge Premium. We then responded to Howard using the Email to Case Premium new comment page. That outbound response in turn cleared the case flag, which tracked response time. I then removed some of the unwanted attachments using the hit list manager associated with Signature Slayer. And then finally, when Howard responded with a second new issue, I split that off into a new case using Case Split.
That's great. So one of the things that I really want to go through, I think it's really important, is to give you guys some suggestions and some best practices, because as you're moving to Lightning, it is one of the common questions that we get, which is like, what should we do for Lightning? How do your apps work with Lightning? And a lot of things just work, but we do, with some things, we do have some good suggestions. So let's start by looking at this. The first one is actually something that you may not realize that you can do, and that's customizing your highlights panel for the case. So Joe, can you sort of switch back, show them exactly where that highlights panel is and how you could customize it, what kinds of things you can do with it?
Sure. So in our customer success developer org, this is the highlights panel on our case page layout. So I've included some of the more important buttons that I think I'm going to use on a daily basis. And these are obviously the ones we looked at today associated with our applications. I've also included some of the fields that are the more significant fields in terms of what I want to see as a support agent on the case. So if I look at this, I want to get a quick view of what this case is about, which is why I include things like the subject line and if the case is flagged or not, who the contact is, things of that nature. If I want to edit that, I just need to go into the edit page portion of Lightning Experience, click on my component here, and from the right-hand panel, I can select how many buttons I want to display. I can select, using the compact layout, I can select which fields I want to show up. I can control specifically how many of the buttons show up. If you want to change which buttons are even visible, that's something you would do through your case page layout.
Got it. So switching back to some of the other suggestions, Case Merge Premium, if you have fully switched to Lightning, you could probably take the old Visualforce fields or those Visualforce pages that show up as fields off of the page layouts and use our new Lightning component. That's something where if everyone's in Lightning, that's great. It's a nice way to kind of increase adoption. You put that panel where it's most productive for people, and that's, it just makes it a little easier to find. If you are switching back and forth, you can actually use them both. So you can leave the fields on your page layout so that switching back and forth, they're still in the right place, but start using that panel. So if you are doing sort of a step-by-step migration where some people are in Classic and some are in Lightning, when those users are in Lightning, they'll see that extra productivity from that Lightning component. Another thing, and you saw Joe do this, is the split process. When you're splitting cases, make sure to retitle the subjects when splitting. This is something that's not specific to Classic or Lightning, but it is something that with that side-by-side mode, it's a really good best practice so that you can really set up whoever the next support agent is to work on it. Maybe you're taking an issue where it came through initially as like 2 questions from a customer, one that's resolved with a knowledge article, and the other that's like a bug fix that has to go to a developer or something, you're able to set up those cases appropriately. So the last thing to note, and this is less of a best practice, but more just moving forward, ask us questions about it, give us feedback. We're working on more Lightning components that extend the functionality of our products so that it solves what we traditionally solved in Classic, which was we wanted Classic to be more productive. We want Lightning to be more productive. So we're looking at ways our products can make that productivity even better. So those kinds of things. So we're very, very open to suggestions. That kind of brings us to the next thing, which is a poll. I want to know this, and that is, where are you in your path to Lightning? So I'm going to launch this poll for you all to get there. So let's do a little launch the poll. So this is kind of what we expected. It's why we did this webinar, which is 11% of you are all Lightning all the time, and that's great. I love to see that. 16% of you are in that switch back and forth process. That's something that, you know, as your org migrates and different users and different needs, you get there. But the lion's share, 68% of you are planning your switch to Lightning, which is why we wanted to do this, because that's exactly what we're going through. But that's sort of a good number to go. And about 5% of you are off Classic forever. I hope that they keep it around forever. We don't know this from Salesforce. My guess is at some point they will be sure to switch everyone over to Lightning, but I don't think that's going to be in the next year or two.
Yep. And it takes time. I would say when Lightning first came out, I was probably of that 5% Classic forever. And then as time progressed, I kind of got used to it. I'm probably now between the switch back and forth and then Lightning all the time.
Yeah, and you know what? We have some objects that we use that aren't compatible with Lightning. So we're forced to keep doing that. In fact, one of those objects is the subject of our next slide, which we still use, which is it relates to how we design the products. In our customer community, we use ideas. The same way that Salesforce uses ideas, they definitely want to make sure that, you know, they collect votes. They make you get to 2,500 points. We just want to see your ideas. We like it when other customers vote and comment on these ideas, but we are listening. We review these all of the time. They're part of our roadmap review. So if you have an idea for how the product should work or could work or something to use, please feel free to post it in our community so we can see how that works. It's a great resource for lots of people.
And actually, Howard, we need to update this slide because the capture partial responses feature has actually been delivered.
That's a great update. Yeah, this webinar is not about Signature Slayer, Simple Survey. Excuse me, it's a long day, not enough coffee. But for Simple Survey, this is something that we talked about on our last webinar, that the ability to do partial responses. So that's a pretty good thing there. All right, so Joe, talk to us about our projected release timelines.
Sure thing, Howard. So we talked about 4 specific apps today: Signature Slayer, Case Split, Case Flags, and Case Merge Premium, all of which are Lightning ready. And we are planning to do a push upgrade for each of these apps coming soon. Our tentative push upgrade schedule is to push these out to all sandboxes on May 17th. So it's a little over 4 weeks from now. And then from there, we're going to progressively push out new versions to production orgs. Between the sandbox and production orgs, I think we're giving somewhere in the realm of between 3 and 6 weeks. So we're definitely giving you a little bit of time to test in the sandbox before we do the official push upgrade in production. And we've listed out all the current version numbers that are on the AppExchange today. Those may get slightly incremented based upon any other minor tweaks or bug fixes that we make in the near future. But
got it. That's great. So at this point, if you haven't, I've been trying to keep up with all of your questions in the chat. I think I've done a pretty heroic job because I was able to clear them out before we got to our question slide. If you have any other specific questions about this process in terms of getting things going, in terms of our process to move to Lightning, please feel free to put those questions in there. If you think of a question after the webinar, send us a question through support, and we'll be happy to answer it for you. Definitely reach out to us from there. So let's moving right along. A couple things to know that these are near and dear to our heart. Of course, we want you to investigate all of our products, not just the 4 that we talked about today. But I also sometimes want to remind people about our free applications. I do that because once upon a time, I was on a new customer welcome call with one of our customers who had a consultant build them a take ownership button, and they got charged about $2,000 of consulting work to build something that is one of our free applications on the AppExchange, which is also a Lightning application. So that's something where it's an easy way to take ownership of cases. Same thing with Add Me as Case Team Member, change case ownership. These are great case management applications that we want to make sure to get there. One of the questions that came in, and this is a great question, is do you have any recommendations on how to effectively move from Classic to Lightning? This is a really, really big topic. This is actually something where I think we're actually planning another webinar for it. We don't have a date for that. But Joe, what kinds of things would you consider in your experience with moving from Classic to Lightning?
Yeah, I think the big thing is getting your page layouts looking right. And I kind of went from using Classic non-console to working in Lightning console. So it's been a big change in kind of getting the right components on your page layout and kind of making sure everything fits well together. Making sure you have the right spacing between things, making sure things line up correctly. So that's been one of my biggest challenges with switching from Classic to Lightning.
Yeah, one of the things I've had to really think about is knowing that every day, like we switch back and forth between Lightning and Classic because there's things that we have to use in Classic, but I try to start every day and after lunch, definitely in Lightning. So we have a console that we built for ourselves for customer success that does really solve many of the problems and things that we work with, but when we have to switch, we do that switch. I make sure that the moment I know that I could be in Lightning, I go back to Lightning. And that's a little bit of a getting your users in the habit of using Lightning. So you definitely don't want to force them if they're not ready for it. They'll, resist, but you do want to nudge. So there's a big difference between forcing and nudging. So the next thing I want to, put a little reminder about is we have another webinar coming up, which is on May 15th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And this is actually all about communities. So what we're going to do in that webinar is we're going to show you all of the different kinds of things, give you some best practice on using Salesforce communities, actually working with the templates they include and customizing those for your specific needs. We have a special guest for that, and that's one of our consultants, Liz Gibbons, who's going to talk us all the way through that process. I'll be interviewing her in that webinar to make sure that we cover all of the bases. I'm really looking forward to it. Liz and I have already started working on the content for this. It's pretty great. I think she's doing a presentation at a user group in Texas next week on a similar topic that we're going to do as a webinar. So just want to remind you of that. If you have any other questions, please feel free to put them in the questions panel. But at this point, we are going to say thank you for joining us. We really appreciate you being here today. And if you have any other questions, needs, let us know. Thanks for being a customer, and good luck in your process to Lightning.